Alrighty, well, thanks everybody for tuning into this episode. Today we have Jacque Stefanik, who is the executive director and co-founder of Serving People with a Mission. Jacque, thank you so much for your time today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on today.
All right, per usual, we like to get started with the mission of the organizations we're interviewing. So, what is the mission of Serving People with a Mission?
Yeah, ironically, serving people with a mission. Our mission is to seek and provide people from all walks of life with the tools to become servant leaders in their communities. And we primarily concentrate on youth because the youth, the young people, the teenagers, the 20-year-olds are the next generation of leaders in our society. And we want to make sure that they have the tools, the tangible tools, the knowledge, and the resources that they need to go out into the world and give back in a positive way. So most importantly, we are a leadership development program that provides young people who are in their teens and 20s with the accurate knowledge and resources and support they need to become servant leaders in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and in our society.
All right. I have tons of questions that I've written down now about that. But before we do, why you? You got started at, as you mentioned, a young age. So why was this something that you were driven to at a young age to found the organization and to continue growing it?
Yeah, I can definitely take on that answer for sure. Well, let's start from the beginning. So, Serving People with a Mission was founded in 2020, and as you may remember, Joseph, 2020 was a really hard year for many people because that was the outbreak of the pandemic. So, 4 years ago from this time, I was actually currently a college student at Loyola University of Chicago. So, I was a junior at Loyola University. I was 21 years old. The pandemic hit. And I was involved in student government. I was involved in many other student organizations. And when the pandemic hit, everything grinded to a screeching halt. Student organizations were kind of caught like a deer in headlights, and we still did our best, of course.
Yeah.
But what really came to my mind was that you know this is not gonna be something that I'm gonna be involved in forever.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be in student government for a long time. I need to think of another way to continue to give back to my community. And this is where I came together with two of my friends who were ironically also in student government. And the three of us, co-founded this organization known as Serving People the Mission. And the summer of 2020, actually, we began the conversations in March of 2020. But in the summer of 2020 is when we really pushed the envelope and said, hey, you know what? Let's incorporate. Let's get our 501c3 status, our tax exemption status, and let's just really create an organization that is sustainable enough to continue to give back to our community in this aspect.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the main reasons why we were like, hey, we are in student government. We are, naturally people who are giving back to our community, and we want to continue to do this, even given in the situation that we were in during a whole pandemic. And it was difficult. There was not much resources available. As you know, everybody was online and,
Yeah.
people really weren't trying to be around other people. So it was challenging. We were trying our best to build a nonprofit from the ground up with resources that were hard to get, essentially. And, we still made the organization possible. And, 4 years later, in January of 2024, we are a sustainable nonprofit. We are growing and, we're continuing to grow.
Yeah. Wow. Well, first question, because it's not a term that I come across too often in this podcast. Unfortunately, servant leadership. You mentioned that. I'm also a Loyola alum, so there's definitely some overlap. So I know where that servant aspect comes from, just from the Jesuit background in education. But I'd like to hear your background. Why was servant leadership a topic that you mentioned as a part of kind of the mission?
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be around a fellow rambler. But servant leadership was actually pitched by one of our co-founders. His name was Carlos Martinez, and he's actually the current operations officer of Serving People the Mission. And even though like servant leadership was something that we've been doing for years prior to starting Serving People the Mission, Carlos officially introduced this topic of servant leadership into the organization to really sum up of really what we do. And the conversation of servant leadership is just being a resource to others, in our opinion. We want to make sure
Yeah.
that people around us, people in our communities, have the resources that they need to be successful and to just be in a healthy community. More importantly, and this is what we teach our students actually. So Serving People the Mission, overarchingly, we are a community-based servant leadership-led nonprofit, but we have a primary service, and it's our flagship program, and it's called the Hand in Hand Leadership Program. And one of the core values of what we teach our students is servant leadership, right? We want our students to grow up and to have this conversation of servant leadership in their head, so they can continue to get back in so they can continue to get back to their communities, after high school, after college, and even beyond. So, this is something that we work on every single day in serving people with a mission is the conversation of servant leadership and making sure that number one, we are resembling this every single day in our work, which we do. But number two, that our students are also learning how to become servant leaders and also practicing servant leadership every single day. And, we teach the students the definition of servant leadership. We give them examples of servant leadership. And we also like to take them to places that also resemble servant leadership. So we also took our students to Loyola University of Chicago for a tour one time. And we like to take our students to other areas that involve community-based nonprofits such as Plant Chicago, who also practice servant leadership, and so on and so forth. So this is something that we work on every single day. And that we are also passing down the knowledge of servant leadership to our students.
Yeah. And you mentioned youth in their teens and 20s is the primary focus of the students in your program. Why was that a focus of yours? Why not younger? Why not older?
Yeah. Well, at the time when we started serving people with the mission, I was 21 years old. Carlos was 21 years old. And our other co-founder, Valeria, she was 20 years old. So we were all still considered youth at the time. And, we saw like the impact that the youth community was having with COVID, more specifically, people who are teenagers and in their 20s. And, the best people to help people who are going through that were people in that same community. So that was the reason why we had a niche in people who are young.
Yep.
So the reason why we wanted to start off with teenagers is because we were like, you know what? A good way to get back to our community is by going back to our community, and more specifically, going back to the high schools where we graduated from.
Yep.
So we had our first program started in the fall of 2021, and that was at Fairgood Career Academy, and it's a high school in a little village. And ironically, that's the high school where our co-founder Carlos graduated from. So, you can see Carlos returning to his high school in a servant leadership fashion. And it really resembles, because the students are like, hey, he went to my high school. Hey, I can ask him questions. And hey, I can look up to him as a mentor, more importantly.
Right.
And the most important part about it is that we are not that far in age from them. We're like 21 years old.
Yeah.
The students are like 15, 16, 17 years old.
Yep.
And, we are continuing to do this aspect. So I graduated from a Noble school, which is, the charter schools in Chicago. And my school is called Rauner College Prep. And in the fall of 2022, we then took the same program and went over to Rauner College Prep, which was my high school. Therefore,
Awesome.
returning to my community and saying, hey, I'm returning to my community. I'm here to help out. And the students really look up to that because they're like, hey, this person was sitting in my same shoes. He knows the teachers. He knows the walk of life, and he knows how to mentor. And that's what we do essentially. And, we're continuing to expand on that topic. We want to go to more schools where we come from. And, we're even going back to our college, Loyola even. And, in this past year, actually, in the fall of 2022, we actually graduated our very first cohort of servant leaders from Arrupe College of Loyola University of Chicago. So, we are continuing to expand in this conversation of servant leadership with a niche in the youth community. And more importantly, by going back to our communities, which is like CPS, Fairgood Career Academy, Noble Schools, Rauner College Prep, Loyola University, Arrupe College. And you know what? We're going to continue to go out through this process as well.
Yeah. Wow. I want to hear more about the hand-in-hand program. It sounds like that's core to your guys' just work and operations as an organization. Talk to me about the evolution of that program and why it was the focus and why it's kind of the core program you have now.
Yeah. Well, the Hand-in-Hand Leadership Program was built from the ground up by the founders of the organization. And yes, we had some help from consultants and people who are mentors to us even. And we just didn't build this program out of thin air. Even though we kind of did, we had a lot of people around us helping us with this program. We were 21 years old, and it's I would imagine it's really challenging for a 21-year-old to create an entire educational program. But we reached out to people who were helping us out, teachers, professors, old supervisors who were actually willing to give their hand of knowledge to help us create this program from the ground up. So the reason why we started this program is because we wanted to just be more connected to our community in an aspect of mentorship, right? And an aspect of teaching them the conversation of servant leadership. And this is the reason why we started off serving people with a mission with the Hand-in-Hand Leadership Program. And that's our flagship program at the moment. And you know what? It's going to be our flagship program for a long time, actually. And the reason why we started this program more specifically is because we saw that, the resources that we learned at Loyola and growing up during our youth, these are the resources that we put directly into this program. right? The conversation of resume building, the conversation of networking. More importantly, you don't really understand how to network until you get to college. And we're teaching the conversation of networking to high school students at a really young age. And they are receiving it very well, actually, very well. And we have another arm of the Hand in Hand Leadership Program as well. It is a very big program on, yes, workshop based mentorship, but we also like to expose students outside of the walls of the school. So, the program has two prongs to it: workshops and exposure. Actually, three, and I'll get to the third one in a second. But the exposure part is literally where we take our students and show them around Chicago, essentially. We like to take them to different places so they can learn about what's outside of the walls of the school. Like, for example, like I mentioned, we took our students to Loyola University of Chicago as like, say, hey, let's go learn about what Loyola has to offer when you do apply to colleges, because most of them are applying to colleges anyway. Let's go learn about Loyola and see what opportunities they have. On the other side, we like to take them to like different firms, for example. Like we took our students to Grant Thornton. It is a financial institution in Chicago. And, students who are like, you know what, I might want to go into IT audit when I graduate from college. They automatically have that in their heads because we took them to Grant Thornton when they're teenagers.
Yeah.
And we like to take our students to other areas, like the conversation of philanthropy is huge for us now. We took our students to the Chicago Community Trust, where they learn about the conversation of philanthropy at a very young age. And most students don't even know what philanthropy is until we introduce that to them.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. And you know what? That's kind of what we do with our students every single week, actually, because we see our students once a week. We either do a workshop with them or we take them outside and explore the city with them and learn with them. And finally, the last leg of the program is actually the philanthropy project. So yes, we teach our students how to be servant leaders, and we teach our students how to essentially be community servants, but also we want them to practice it directly in the program, and we want to see it. So this whole philanthropy project is basically us serving people with a mission, kind of training the students how to understand how to manage a budget. And you know what, it basically give them like, $500 as a group, or like, here's, $500. You and your team, you're going to make a decision on how to spend this money for the greater good of your community. That could be a food drive. That could be doing a staff appreciation. That could be doing a clothing drive. It's whatever you want to do. And that's the point that really drives their leadership, because they are like, okay, I have autonomy over how to make decisions over this money. And it's really teaching them fiscal responsibility at a really young age and giving them a fiduciary duty more specifically. And you know what? There are young students who are acting like a board of directors more specifically, where they're making decisions about, how are we going to spend this money? They vote, they make comments, they adjourn, and it's amazing. You got to see it for yourself. But, we teach the students how to do this over months. It doesn't happen overnight. The program is 6 months long, right? It's 6 months long. It goes over 2 semesters. So we have to be with the students so we can, kind of walk them through this process of servant leadership, of how to be a young philanthropist, and of the exposure part as well. But I know just a little bit, I came from
no.
You already know we ramble a lot over there, but yeah, that's kind of the 2 cents.
No, exactly. I'm sure that program also teaches. I'm sure a lot of people have ideas of how they'd want to spend the 500, and you probably have to put together a proposal and a plan to explain why people should get behind your idea as well, right? So it's kind of like a internal pitch competition of what could have the biggest impact, or what could be explained and used to inspire the most, which would get more people on board. So there's a lot of learnings in that type of a program. Yeah. And then next question, partners in schools that you collaborate with. You took us through the co-founders, such as yourself, being able to go back to your high school and initiate some of the programming. What are some of the other schools and partners that you guys work with to make your organization successful?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, our school that we graduated from, which is Loyola University of Chicago, we are trying to get more partnerships with them. But, that's one of our main partners. Loyola University of Chicago is a rebate college. We are working with Noble Schools, Rauner College Prep, and we are working with Chicago Public Schools, Very Good Career Academy. On top of that, we actually have a new partnership with Grow Greater Inglewood, and they are a social enterprise, obviously based in Inglewood. And they also have a youth program where we are able to step in and provide essentially the hand-in-hand leadership program for them. And it was our first summer program, and that was amazing. So those are our main institutions that we are partnered with. And we do actually have another program, and it's called the Giving People Donations Drive. And this is the second leg of SPM's programs and services. Yes, we have our hand-in-hand leadership program, and that is a huge aspect of our program. But the Giving People Donations Drive is a huge donations drive with the conversation of basically donating clothes, with a niche of donating professional clothes.
Right.
So what we do in the Giving People Donations Drive, we partner with different organizations such as Plant Chicago, Grow Greater Inglewood, even City Colleges of Chicago. And we use them, or not use them, I shouldn't say that. We utilize their resources where we can collect clothes from staff members, students. And we know the way we do this, we just have a donation box on the campus
Yeah.
or on their site, and people just donate what they can. And when we collect these items, and it's a lot because imagine having like 16 different donation boxes spread across throughout the city. You got to
Yeah.
really capture all of them. And that's literally thousands of pieces of clothes that we are able to collect and redistribute without these clothes being thrown away. So
Yep.
it is an environmental justice aspect. We are saving many sorts of items, mainly clothes, from going into the garbage. And more importantly, we are providing free resources to people who don't have these items.
Yep.
Yes, we do clothing drives, we do coat drives, but also we like to do this thing called a professional clothing drive. And this is where it ties right back to our hand in hand leadership program, where we take clothes from our partners, or the partners donate their clothes to us, and then we donate these professional clothes directly to our students. And, yes, as tangibly preparing them how to be professional as well, on top of them being a mental professional. So we
Right.
utilize, those partners to capture those clothes. And it's been great. I really appreciate our partners. On top of that, we also have some funding partners as well. The Chicago Community Trust has given us one of our first grants. Grace Lutheran Church and School, they are a huge supporter of us. And you know what? All of the individual donors as well on top of that have been supporting SPM from the beginning. So, a combination of our institutions, our environmental justice partners, and our funders are the reason why SPM exists today. And I'm really grateful for them.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. There's a lot of different programs you guys are running with. Any upcoming ones? So in your current programming, are there any certain milestones of your current programs that you're running right now that you want to make sure to call out, whether it's new
Yeah.
drives or any milestones in the in the hand in hand program?
Well, our hand in hand leadership program, we do have a graduation coming up in May,
Mm.
actually, which I would love to invite you to, Joseph. It's going to be in May. It's going to be somewhere in downtown, and I'll send you an invitation to that. But every program that we complete, we always graduate the students. And we like to do a ceremony where we invite the parents, the teachers, the principals, the friends, and stuff like that, just to witness the fact that their
Right.
students and their children have grown into more of a servant leader. And it's a really emotional time, actually. Parents are always there. They're always, happy to be there and bring even more of their family members. And the students are also there as well, of course. They're the core of the whole celebration. And this is a time where we could honor and just recognize what our students have done over the past 6 months. And it is going to be sometime in May. So I will definitely send you some more information on that for sure. And in terms of our donations drive, we do a lot of resource fairs. And we do a lot of it in collaboration with our partner, Plant Chicago. And you know what? I think that we are having some coming up in March. I'm just not sure yet. I got to talk to the chief environmental justice officer of the organization first. But those resource fairs happen pretty regularly, actually, like once or twice a month, actually. So I'll definitely send you some information on that as well. But I would definitely love to see you at a graduation. And anybody's actually invited to come to the graduation to see our students, to witness our servant leaders walking across the stage.
Wow.
And it's going to be a really great time to just kind of see the next generation of servant leaders arise and take over Chicago.
Yeah. Wow. Measuring the impact that you guys have made uh, over the past few years, obviously you guys are ramping your programming. How many students have gone through? What are your current goals? How are you tracking towards them? I'd love to hear some of the data behind the impact.
Yeah. And, the data is very important. So we have went through Farragut, Rauner, Grow Greater Inglewood, and Loyola. So that's 4 graduating classes. And we are in
Wow.
our 5th cohort right now, actually. Each class has around 15 students.
Yeah.
And we have an alumni network of about 55 students. And you know what? We are actually going to be graduating our next cohort in May. So that's going to jump probably to around like closer to 70, I would say. So we're growing. Our alumni network is growing. And you know what? I wanted it to continue to grow. I want us to have more alums that are reaching across the entire city and different schools. And in terms of our metrics, you know what? Everybody from the program benefits from the program one way or another, whether they are learning how to become a better leader, whether they're building up their resume, or whether they're meeting new people, because we introduce them to a lot of professionals in the world as well. They are growing, and that's also a success metric in itself.
Yep.
You know what? I guess some testimonials that I like to shine some light on is one of our first graduating speakers. Her name was Iris, actually. She was saying that how the program really helped her become more of a professional at such a young age, at 16 years old, as somebody
Yeah.
who didn't even know what a resume was and who now has a resume. And because of that, she actually got her first summer job through SPM in the summer of 2022, actually. So, that's a huge success for us. And even parents who would walk up to us during the graduation saying, my child has become more confident in themselves and has become a better speaker and has become essentially more of a prepared person for college, even. That is a success metric in itself. But more specifically, we have a cohort or an alumni network of 55 students, and
Yep.
we are growing for sure. And I'm looking forward to
Wow.
that.
Wow. Talking about growing, what are your hopes looking back 3 years from now, 5 years from now, et cetera, for the
Yeah.
organization?
Well, serving people with a mission, we are still a volunteer-led organization. So essentially meaning that, all of the leaders of the organization, including myself, are volunteers.
Right.
So we are hoping to grow the organization well enough to where we could have more staff and where we can have more support around the work that we do and to even make this a full-time job.
Yep.
That's one of the main goals. And that's number one. Number two, we want to expand the program to where we can run simultaneous programs at the same time. At the moment, well, technically, we did run two programs in the fall of 2023, the Aripe program and the Rounder program, but that was definitely challenging in itself because running two programs at the same time kind of stretches us really thin. But we want to get to the capacity where we can run two programs at the same time and be okay with it because we want to stretch out this program as much as we can because it's a much needed program. So
Yep.
with that comes with more partnerships. So we definitely want to have more partnerships in the near future. Partner with more noble schools, partner with more high schools, partner with more colleges even. And that's one of the main goals that I see for serving people with a mission. It's expanding our reach and running simultaneous programs at the same time. So we're running a
Wow.
program like, say, at Loyola. We'll be running another program at Rounder at the exact same time. And that's what I really want to see SPM doing in the near future.
Yeah. Wow. Well, engagement. It sounds like that's going to be a part of achieving those goals. Engagement. What type of engagement are you looking for right now, and where can people find you?
Yeah, well, we do have our website. It's called servingpeoplewithamission.org, or SPM for short is our kind of our nickname. But just type in servingpeoplewithamission.org into your computer, and then you'll find our website. We have Instagram where we post a lot of our pictures on. You can see our most recent cohort. You can see our previous graduates. So just type in SPM_leads. And then for LinkedIn and Facebook, it's just serving people the mission. Just find us on there as well. And ways you can get engaged is by number one, just following us on social media, subscribing to our newsletter, and even donating. And donating comes in many different fashions. Yes, we are accepting financial donations, and this is what drives our organization to be successful is, financially supporting our organization because every time we see our students, which is once a week, we are spending around $500. That's including travel, catering, student support, and miscellaneous expenses. So
Right.
it's not easy to, run a program and it's not cheap either. And another way is to donate clothes as well. Everybody has a closet, and I'm sure everybody has clothes that they're not wearing. And we do accept clothing donations year round. So this is an opportunity for you to, number one, clean out your closet. And number two, donate some clothes that could be worn by somebody else, and that can help them actually. So those are some three major ways to get involved with SPM. Following us on social media,
Yep.
donating financially, and donating tangibly with clothes.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And then probably additional community partners to keep expanding the breadth that you guys have, whether
Oh,
it's high
yeah.
schools or colleges or community-based organizations that want to partner. I'm sure there's so many ways.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that. Yes, more partners for sure. Anybody who has some sort of an institution,
Yep.
a youth program, even, we can definitely step in and fill in that gap for you in the conversation of servant leadership.
Wow. Well, is there anything that we missed or anything you want to leave us with before we wrap up this interview that flew by?
Oh yeah, I really appreciate your time, Joseph. Number one, and I guess just number two, SPM, we are a small, growing nonprofit. We are only
Mhm.
4 years old and growing, and we are a youth-led organization. So, happy to have as much support as you all could offer. And I really appreciate Joseph here for giving us some time to speak about our organization and shining light on us. And that's something that is not really common for us, is shining light on our organization because we're so much into the conversation of being boots on the ground.
Yep.
and boots
Yep.
on the ground with our students. So I really appreciate this, Joseph. So anybody who has any sort of opportunities, resources, mentorship even, please feel free to reach out. And I'm definitely open for some coffee, open for a conversation on Zoom to just learn more about how we can collaborate together.
Awesome. Well, Jacque, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And the work that you're doing with youth is amazing. I'm a little biased because I'm also from Loyola, so and in Chicago, see the flag behind you. But thank you so much for your time. We're honored to share your story and to get the work that you're doing to a broader and to an additional audience here that listen to the podcast. So thanks again.
Yes.
Wish you all the best of luck, and we'll be sure to share all the details in the show notes.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.